everyone. Welcome to the daily review. Okay, so you guys, I am sharing my Forex Factory screen. Can you, if you do see my Forex Factory screen on right now, if you could please put a yes in the chat there so I can see that it's on. Yes, okay, perfect. So let me go through, we will start there. And as we go through, feel free to ask questions and I'll see if I can answer them as we continue here. Please do bear with me. This is my first time or trying to share my screen here. I'm very new to Facebook Live. So anytime if you cannot see my screen, I will try to speak through it. So if you don't see it, see what I'm pointing at, please let me know through a comment in. I will try to change things. So one of the things that I have been challenged to do, or I want to do better right now, is that is actually working with doing a daily reviews. Or doing a daily review is a very, very important exercise. It's like watching the tape. If you play sports, it's like watching the tape after the game. It helps you see what you did correct that day, what you did wrong, and how we can improve stuff going forward. So that's the purpose of the daily review. Another thing that I'm going to do as part of the daily review as well also is to look at some trade setups that worked out really well. So these trade setups could be something that either we have traded or we may not have traded these trade setups, or we may not have taken the trades based on these, but they look very, very good. And the reason of looking backwards is that we are training our brains to identify these trade setups in the future. So if we can find them and identify them in the past, we'll be able to identify them in the future. So that's what we are doing. This is just neural programming. It creates neural pathways in our brain to be able to identify those things. So let's take a look at what happened during the day today. First, we'll do a quick review here. The UK session today was very, very choppy. I had a euro and yen and pound yen trades short last night, which worked out in the London session. But then I have to say I tried to add to my position and I did not do that too effectively. So adding to the position is not something that I do on a regular basis. I tend to be a short-term trader and I just add to my position. I normally don't add to my position. So I just, take my profits and I tend to walk away because I'm a day trader. So I was trying to add to my positions, but as soon as I added to my position, the trade just turned around me, against me. So what happened there was, so this is a comment around Japanese yen. So if you have been trading Japanese yen, you will notice that price has been doing some crazy stuff. So here I am looking at dollar yen. Dollar yen, we had a nice pin bar yesterday. So based on this nice pin bar, I was expecting the price to drop. And instead we saw this big, huge move to the upside. If you look at euro yen, we had a very nice bearish candle close yesterday. So I was looking for price to drop further. However, it went up. So let me talk about what's going on with the yen. So if you are new to trading, or if you've been trading for a while, but you don't understand risk, this is a great opportunity that the market is providing us to learn this. First, there are two different types of environments, risk on and risk off. And right now we are going between the two, from risk on to risk off to risk on again. So what does a risk on environment mean? A risk on environment means that investors are confident or they're comfortable with the business environment and they're willing to take a risk. And what that means is that during this time, investors will actually go towards stock markets, like things that provide better returns. So equity markets or stock markets generally provide better returns than bond markets. So investors are willing to invest in equities, they'll buy stocks in the company, and they're willing to take that risk on. However, the risk off environment is when investors are scared. They're concerned either about the market conditions or what's going on from political perspective, geopolitical perspective. And as a result of that, they're concerned about markets reacting to those risks and markets dropping. So there are three different things that are creating this risk on, risk off environment at the moment. So we are shuttling between the two. One day it's risk on, everybody's happy, which is what we saw today. When we have a risk on environment, all the yen crosses will go up. So today we saw a big move to the upside. So that's because of the risk on environment, because investors are willing to take risk, and we saw price go up as a result. However, yesterday, a couple of days ago, we saw yesterday, especially here, we saw a risk off environment, where markets are, we also call this risk aversion. That's another term you may have heard about this. During this environment, investors are not willing to take on risk, and they try to avoid risk. So they will take the money out of the stock markets. So generally what the investors will do is they will, in the risk off environment, they will sell stocks. So equity markets tend to sell off. So if you see S&P is dropping, NASDAQ, Dow Jones is dropping, that means we are in a risk off environment. So investors are not willing to take on risk. So they take the money out of the stock market, that they will take their money out, and they will buy bonds instead, because bonds are interest bearing instruments. So your money is protected, or well, it's you get interest on your money. So you're not really taking that much of a risk. So they are considered safer investments. And that's what's happening right now. We had that. And what created this environment, right? So first, the talk about tariffs from US, that is negative for the stock market, because when we put tariffs, it creates economic risk. So let's say you are a company that manufactures, let's say you build something with steel, right? So we put tariffs on steel, so we cannot get steel into the country. So anything that you're making, it will cost you, first of all, to buy the steel will cost you more. That means your own product has to cost more, or you're not going to be able to get as much profit out of it, which is not good. So stock market, Wall Street does not like tariffs and stuff like that. They like free trade, which means businesses will be growing and doing more business. So when we hear about stuff like that, tariffs and things like that, markets will drop. But yesterday, now there were comments, or today I should say, there was basically comments about U.S. working with China, because China is the one that is that exports most of the stuff into the U.S. So they are the biggest exporter into the U.S. and the U.S. wants to reduce that trade deficit. The U.S. wants to have more of a balanced trade with China, as opposed to China being the exporter and U.S. being the importer, and hence they were one of the big targets. But then we saw in the news that China and US are working together in order to create this more balanced environment. So now that causes a risk on environment, which means investors are happy, markets like those comments when everybody works together. So that creates risk on. So people are not scared, investors are not scared. Now, another thing that's going on in the market at the moment is also with Facebook, right? And tech stocks. So Facebook started selling off after that whole scandal came out, with Facebook having shared people's private information and to help with campaigns and so forth. As a result of that, Facebook started selling off, and that the whole concern spread to other tech stocks as well. So Amazon took a hit, Nvidia took a hit, so some of the other tech stocks took a hit. So the entire market, or as a result of that market, equity markets started to drop. When equity markets drop, and this is why we want to pay attention to other things going on in the market, not just Forex, because when equity markets drop, money flows into yen, right? So that's why we saw all the yen crosses drop, because yen became it became more expensive. It went up. So as a result of that, we had seen this drop. However, when that is not a concern anymore, now we saw yen go up. So right now we are in this back and forth choppy environment, and we are in this range bound environment. So I'm actually currently in a sell trade for pound yen and euro yen, because in this one, if you take a look at it, we are at the top here. Have been in this range bound for last 2 days. Price came into this level and it dropped from here. We had trouble with this level previously. So right now I'm in a sell trade. Euro yen, it's okay right now. Pound yen is another trade that I'm in short at the moment. I'm looking for price to drop. So this is where the price is. If you take a look at it, this is a very strong support and resistance area. Price went into this level. We had a drop, and then it dropped from here. Yesterday it dropped. Today we are back into this. So I sold this, and I'm looking for price to go back lower. So this is how we understand what's going on in the market beyond just the technicals. Technicals are great to understand. It's an important skill to have, but we also need to pay attention to everything else that's going on in the markets. I'm looking for basically price to come down for both euro and pound yen. But again, it's very important to pay attention to what's going on in the news wires. So how do we find out this information? One thing to look at here would be Bloomberg. So I always have my Bloomberg on here. So if you take a look at bloomberg.com/markets, Bloomberg is it's a service that provides these Bloomberg terminal costs upwards of $100,000 if you want to get their research. So, but they do give some research for free, and this is what we're getting here, right, in the stories. And then if you subscribe to like Talking Forex or somebody, they will give you these news feeds as well, which help. So I recommend going to stories like this and taking a look at what they're saying. If you're a new trader, they may not make sense to you at this moment, but as you keep on reading them, they will start to make more sense. So I would take a look at this and read this article, because articles like this will help explain what's going on in the market. So I would recommend looking at both Bloomberg/markets and Reuters markets every day to understand the overall environment. So now let's go on to the charts. Take a look at what were some good trade setups that presented themselves today. Again, the idea here is that we're just practicing what's going on in the market so that we can take these trade setups in the future. So if we can recognize them as they happen or in the past, like the same day, this is a good practice. It's like, doing your practice, you go to school, but after you come do your homework, that way, anything that you learned that day will be imprinted on your brain as you're going forward. So this is just a good, it's a little hack that you use, and especially if you do it before going to sleep, this is another hack. I don't always talk about this, but basically if you practice something before going to sleep, it imprints that on your brain, and your brain has a chance to reorganize that information so that it will stay with you and you will get better results. You can actually, by just doing this one simple trick, you can actually 10x your performance or your learning ability. So if you wanted to shortcut something, this is one way to do it. Practice that thing before going to bed, and your brain will work double trying to put that into practice. Okay, so let's start off with euro. So there was a good trade setup in euro that I really liked. So this is today's price action. Well, what we saw today, so one of the things that I use in my trading are pivot points. And if you are part of the trade room, you get these pivot points for free. You can also download them from the internet, or your broker may have them. This is how we use pivot points. We see price go in one direction, so price drops, then I'm looking for a pullback into the pivot, and I'm looking for a further drop. And in the opposite direction is the same. Once we see price hold above pivot point, we look for it to go to R1 level and then do a pullback into pivot, and then go R1, pull back into pivot, and so forth. So they're nice to trade in a trending move as well. So in this case, the setup that I have here is this particular setup here. So what do we see here? First, we saw a drop in the price, and then I'm looking for price to pull back into the pivot point. Once we see this big bearish engulfing candle right on the daily pivot, after this candle closes, this is a great opportunity to enter this trade short. So this is Euro US dollar 1 hour chart. So this was a great trade setup. If we see this type of a trade setup again, this is worth taking. So this setup is worth practicing, and I would highly recommend going back on your charts and practicing them. This type of trade setups, you can throw a demo trade on to see how price reacts. But this is a bearish engulfing candle right at the daily pivot point. Price closes below. Good place to enter the trade would be right at the close of this candle, and we can either have stop here or higher above here, looking for price to drop into S1. So that will be the first target. S2 will be the second target. So that was one trade setup for today. Euro US dollar short trade right at the pivot point, bearish engulfing candle combined with daily pivot and also with support resistance. So if you see there's resistance right here, price is running into resistance again. So there's confluence of multiple factors coming together to give us this trade opportunity. And then we have another one was euro dollar here as well. So in this case, we saw price drop again and see how we went right into our S2 level. But after this drop, so let's say we didn't catch this, and I did not catch this one because I had, this was the first day I was at my computer. So I wasn't, I didn't catch this. I didn't see this till price had dropped below this. So I was looking for a pullback. Anyway, I missed the opportunity to get in. I was a little bit reluctant. So didn't take this one. Now, how do we get back into this trade, right? So how do we get into this trade if we miss this trading opportunity the first time around? So the trade setup that was present here was this one. So this is I call this the back test of the level. So basically price will drop through a level, come back and test the same level again. So if you look on the left here, price tried to go through. So this was a news move. So there's that pin, so we won't worry about this, but the point is the price came into this level and did drop here. Now see how price pulls back into the same level here, which is our R1 level from a couple days ago, and this same level acted as support here. Price finally fell through it and then came back to test the same level from the opposite direction. And once we get this bearish engulfing candle close, so this is the same bearish engulfing trade setup, it's just not at a pivot point, it's just at a regular level. So in this one, it's also the zero level, so 42.00, so 41.995, so it's 1.4200. So 00 numbers are natural support and resistance levels as well, so keep those in mind. So we have the zero level, we have previous support and resistance level, we have a bearish engulfing candle close. So we have multiple factors of confluence coming together to give us a great opportunity to trade this. So again, this would have been a great trade to take here. Once we get this bearish engulfing candle close here, we could take a short right at this level. Our stop could go above this pin, so somewhere over here, so we give it some room for trade to breathe because it could just come and test this level again. So we stay with it, and we see price pulls back into the daily pivot, but see how it holds below the daily pivot, doesn't really manage to close, so we can still stay in this trade. The target would be in here because this is also a good support and resistance level, and as we can see, price came right to this level. So that was second trade setup that was really good. And if you see this type of a trade setup, these are generally good trade setups to take in our trading. Let's take a look at Aussie dollar here. Actually, let's take a look at yen. Let's take a look at, perhaps, let's see if we can find something here. So this one, it's a little messy, very choppy. Let's go to Aussie here, see if we find something. Actually, here's another one that I really like. So this is a back test of the level as well. So see here, we see that the price had dropped through this support and resistance level at 77 00. So this is a round number. This is called round number, all the zeros. So basically these numbers tend to provide support or act as dynamic, or, you know, they provide support. So 00s, 20, 50, and 80, those are the different levels that I generally look for retracement and price to react at. So price goes through this level, and then see how we see price comes back into this level, and then the same support level acts as resistance. And if you take a look at it, it's also our daily pivot level. That's why I really like trading the pivot points, because generally price will drop, pull back into the daily pivot, give us this nice trade setup. This is called railroad tracks, where one candle goes in one direction, the second candle tells us what direction the price is likely to move in. So in this case, our bias is already to the downside, and then we get this bearish engulfing candle or railroad tracks trade setup, and now we could go short here. We could put our stop just above the high in this one here, and then we are looking for price to drop into our S1 level, and finally it got there. So now it looks like it wants to continue lower. So that's the third trade setup. So my goal is to identify 3 trade setups that looked really good, and look at how we can trade them again the next time that we take these trades. All right, so I kind of went on a lengthy one there. Any questions? Although I have to say, I'm not sure how I see the questions. So please, you know what, let's do this. I will answer any questions in the Facebook group. So I will also mark these charts up, and I'll post them in the Facebook group as well, so that you guys can take a look at them when you have time, and you can understand them better. And hopefully this exercise will help you practice some of these trade setups so you can take them in the future. All right, that's all I have for tonight. Have a wonderful evening, wonderful night, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.